Hey guys, new episode of Triflix Cast. This time we're taking over interns. We're talking about our experiences with filmmaking. We're talking about what?
I said mwah.
Mwah. That was a really
You said we're taking over.
We're taking over, yes. This is our show now. We got Spencer, we got Hayden.
Where am I?
We're holding David hostage.
I don't even know where I
That's
am.
true,
Where
too.
am I?
Spencer,
Who are you?
We're
are you
all
guys?
figuring this stuff out. We talk about our experiences. We talk about our creativity and passions.
Help me, get me out of here.
Thanks, Spencer. Hi, welcome to Triflix Cast. Interns take over. We are creative enthusiasts, artists, and aspiring filmmakers talking about the industry's impact while sharing our own personal perspectives and goals. Today, I'm hosting. My name's Daniel. I'm the editor here at Triflix. Along with me is...
Hi, my name is Kat, and I run the social media for Triflix.
Yes.
And argue that film can sometimes be superior to digital photography.
Yes. This is great. This is a great start. I love this. And today we also have two guests. I don't think you guys have actually seen these guys' faces or heard their voices on the podcast at all, but these guys have a history with Triflix, and we are super excited to have them on. So today we have...
Spencer Walsh.
And who are you? What do
And
you do?
I'm an aspiring film director.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we also have...
Hayden Myers. So I'm a graphic designer, but also apparently a YouTuber now. So we can get to that later.
We can definitely get into that
we
more.
can say storyteller
Yes.
overall.
Yes.
'cause stories, that's the stuff.
Yes. Stories are the stuff. Exactly.
As they say, stories are soul food.
I am so excited to be here, and I'm so
Me too.
I don't know what the word is, but I am grateful to know you all individually. Some of you more than others, but just the fact that I've been a part of Triflix and get to have these connections with people around my age with the same passion and drive for filmmaking, so awesome. And so I'm really happy about this conversation, about everything we're going to talk about. So to start off, I know Hayden and I have seen a recent movie that came out called The Fabelmans. Have you guys seen this movie?
I have not, but I've been wanting to so bad.
You've been wanting to, so you've heard about it. It's
Yes.
it's considered Steven Spielberg's best film. It came out towards the end of 2022. There's a specific scene in it that I want to talk about and kind of equate it to our lives personally, in which the main character, kid, young Sammy, he goes to see his first movie in the theaters. And there's this scene, iconic scene in The Greatest Show on Earth, where a train car crashes into an old car of some sort, and just the slow-mo that happens and everything happens, and the character Sammy is just mesmerized by everything that he's seeing on the silver screen. And you can really tell how Steven Spielberg shot it. He's equating to his own life, of course, but that's the moment that this kid fell in love with filmmaking. And I loved watching that, and I was curious, what's an early memory that you guys had of when you first fell in love with the art of filmmaking?
Who wants
Anybody
to
can go first. So I feel like Spencer has stuff to say, so go.
So this is not really I wouldn't call this falling in love with filmmaking per se, since there was another time for that when I got older. But I would say the earliest memory that I kind of got remotely interested in either videography or filmography or whatnot was when I was about probably 9 or 10 years old. I had a Nintendo DS, and what I would do is I would take either a movie or an action figure, and I would videotape myself reviewing it. Or if not, I would take my little toys and I would make little stop motion animation films with them. But at that time, it wasn't really like a specific interest of mine. It was more or less a hobby. But as I got older, I learned to love it. So,
dude, that's awesome. Was it like a DSi with the camera in it, and that's what you used?
I believe it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Stop
that takes me back.
motions are iconic.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
are. They really are.
Yeah.
So
Kat, Hayden,
Firstly, I think everyone kind of around me realized that I was obsessed with film and stuff before I did, because I would, watch a movie. My brother and I would watch movies together, and then I would go back and watch the behind the scenes 1,000 times to figure out how they made each scene right. And then also, when I learned that stop motion was a thing, I had a lot of American Girl dolls because I realized that I was the only granddaughter on one side of my family, and I realized that I was the only granddaughter, so I could ask for whatever I wanted and I would get it. So I had a lot of American Girl dolls, and so I'd make stop motions with them. And so those were kind of the first like little films that I made. But I just loved the behind the scenes aspect of making films so much. And I used to draw a lot as a kid before I discovered cameras were a thing. And it's funny because people were always like, so do you want to like draw stuff when you grow up or whatever? And I was always like, no, because it was kind of like a means to an end for me. And I realized looking back on them all now, they look like, all of my drawings look like storyboards and like character design or costume design. That's what they look like. They like, I wasn't like making a piece of art. It was like a means to an end to tell some sort of story. And that's why I think I always like stuck my nose up when everyone was like, oh my goodness, you're going to be an artist. And I was like, I don't want to draw forever. It's just, I need some way to express it. Yeah. So
I'm curious, like what's one of the behind the scenes that you consistently watch? Did you have like a favorite movie behind the scenes?
That's a good question.
If you can't think of one, I was just curious.
I know that I watched the behind the scenes for a lot of animated things a lot. I'm trying to think if there was any specific one. The Disney's Pocahontas behind the scenes was really neat because they shot some stuff with the actress who did the voice, the non-singing voice, but the voice for Pocahontas, like on location where the story's set. So first of all, that was really neat to see.
Really
and then they would like go into the studio and talk about it. And then that's how I learned that, often there's like a voice actor and then like someone who does the singing. And I was like, oh my gosh, animation is really cool. So, and I think that's kind of where the stop motion also picked up because I was like, I can do this with my dolls and my tiny little camera that sucks. But, and then, what else? I also watched for live action Cheaper by the Dozen, the behind the scenes of that a lot, just because there was a lot of kids in it, and I also liked acting a lot, so I was like, I want to beat them. So
coming from a big family, I totally related to Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yes.
So, and speaking of big families, let's go to Hayden. What's an early memory you had of falling in love with filmmaking?
It was kind of like this slow dawning. This like I didn't have like, bang, I want to be a director or storyteller or something, but it was like stories to me as a kid were very just like visceral and incredible, and we didn't watch a lot of movies, so when we did watch it, it was really special. And so I'd be at a friend's house and we're like watching Finding Nemo for the first time, and they're like, okay, now you need to sit still and don't move and just watch them. And it's like, whoa, what else would I be doing? This is incredible. We're watching a movie. This is amazing. So, but I was always just like taken by stories. And then it kind of took me just a long time to realize how much stories were just like, I fed on them and they were incredible. And then I did grow up drawing, and I was always drawing as a kid, and I would just like fill my math books with just zillions of drawings, which kind of annoyed my parents, but they were supportive. But so I was always kind of like the artist, and there's like, are you going to become an illustrator, all this stuff. And I did have like these really expressive drawings as a kid that had stories. And so I have like there was one where this elk, it's like a 39-point elk or something, and then it's outrunning this bullet from like a hunter. And like, so I was very, very story focused with a lot of my drawings.
That's awesome.
But then just like growing up in high school, using my art to be a part of the storytelling process. At our homeschool group, we had these huge theater productions, and being backstage and helping with costumes and weapons and armor and painting stuff, it was really magical. And I remember just watching the theater production and seeing them all use the stuff that I had helped design and create. And it's like, I am Weta Workshops from Lord of the Rings. Like, I helped make this come alive. Like, the actors can now give these performances because they have these swords and these shields and costumes and that I helped make. And it was like absolutely incredible. And I had this high from like after the production driving home. And then, but it still was this really gradual dawning process where there was those moments where you just stagger out of the theater and like, what did I just see? Like it's Endgame or it's Top Gun Maverick, and I'm just like, this is amazing. What just happened?
Yeah.
Whoa. Or especially like after Jojo Rabbit, there's so many movies like that. So I just started gradually realizing like I would love to be part of the storytelling process. And then it kind of shifted to, well, I could hopefully maybe direct someday. But I understand, I mean, that's really difficult to get into, but it started becoming more of a focus because I just love telling stories and being part of the process. And that's always subject to change, maybe concept art, maybe whatever. But I always thought telling stories is just the greatest thing. So, yeah, bit of a long story, but it was a gradual dawning process for me. And then that's where I'm at now. So
that's great. That's awesome. I love it.
I would like to say, having been directed by you very briefly, you're very good at it.
Oh, thanks.
Like you're very good at describing like what you want. Like it makes sense. It's very clear to me. Also, storyboards are a beautiful thing. Having worked with so many film students that are like, no, it's fine. I can just tell you what I want. I'm like, no, please just draw it. It can be a stick figure. I just need to know what you're picturing. So yeah, it's.
And even like you see some of the behind the scenes on these huge blockbusters, and the storyboards are. It's like, I know kids that could draw that well. And it's like, that's the beauty of it. You're just telling them where the camera needs to point and how it needs to move. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be comic book level stuff.
Literally just give me a stick figure and like, which way the person's supposed to be looking. I got this.
Arrows, the cross on the face. Yeah.
Because I've been in experiences where people would try to describe the camera movement they want. And when I try to equate exactly what they're wanting me to do with the lens, like it doesn't come anywhere close, and I hand it to them and they do something completely different than what was in my head. And so having a storyboard I think is very valuable, because even if it doesn't look amazing, you can at least get an idea of exactly what the person's looking for.
You could even get creative and be like in The Mandalorian, the season 2, in the episode where Boba Fett comes out and starts going ham on all these stormtroopers. The director for that was a director for Spy Kids, but he said the way he fleshed out that scene, the way he did like a rough cut of what he wanted to look like, he said he got his kids Star Wars figurines. He basically just did this little video of like,
that's awesome.
This guy goes flying and then that guy like runs over here. And it's like, he basically just did like a bunch of 4th graders like playing with stuff, and then used that for his like template of he might even show that to the Disney people, and they're like, okay,
that's awesome.
It's hilarious.
In school people would complain that they couldn't draw, and our director was like, just go on location and take pictures. Just literally take pictures. Make it a PowerPoint. Like no excuses.
It helps a lot. So you're talking a little bit about the college experience inside of that. So do you want to talk more about that now?
Sure.
Please share some more, because I know
I don't want to jump around your outline.
You guys, both you, Spencer and Kat,
we've been educated.
Went to college and were educated on film-related topics at the very least. And so let's get into that. Kat, do you want to start?
Sure. It is really funny because I used to tell people, I was going to school for cinematography, and then a multitude of things happened, primarily, the plague. And so the reason I picked the school that I went to was because they had a semester where you were supposed to get to go to LA and like actually, help shoot stuff in LA. And I was like, this is great, because it was a small college. It wasn't, on the other side of the US, and it was, less expensive than being on the other side of the US too, but I would still get that experience. And then the plague happened and I didn't. So really, I feel like I have a film history degree. That is what I have. I have a film history degree because I can talk a lot about random films from, like the 1920s, or how Edison kept trying to take credit for everything, including movies. And he like built a whole little house to like shoot stuff in, and the roof lifted up so you could get enough sunlight to actually shoot these tiny little like 30-second motion pictures. So yeah, I can talk a lot about that. But as for actual like filming experience where it wasn't like me running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to do everything and just like directing my friends and hoping that it turns out at the end. It would have to be like the 48-hour film thing. That was the most like working with a crew experience that I've ever had, which was really fun. So I'm definitely glad that I got to do that. But yeah, I would say I have a film history degree, and so I can talk about the history of films for a hot minute, and hopefully that's interesting in some way, shape, or form. And then I got minors in photography and humanities accidentally because I accidentally got a minor because all of my film classes were cross-listed with humanities so many times that I was adding it all up, and I was like, "Excuse me, registrar's office, I believe that I have earned a humanities minor. Is this correct?" They were like, "Yep, that's correct." I was like, "Sweet, that's great. I love that for me. That'll look real pretty somewhere." So, and then your school actually sent you like film equipment, right?
Yeah, so nice segue. Thank you.
Great
So
segue.
my history with my film school goes back probably 5 years, back to probably December of 2017. So when I was a senior in high school, I had already begun thinking about what film colleges I wanted to attend. I looked at New York University, USC, whatnot, all those different film schools, and I saw one that was called Full Sail University. It's a film school located down in Winter Park, Florida. And I checked out. I'm like, hey, this looks kind of interesting. It looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
They have like an entire back lawn on campus that I can use for filming and whatnot. It looks kind of cool. Put it off to the wayside for a little bit. Just wanted to focus on high school for a little bit. And then I think from the get-go, like that school was the main one that I was wanting to go to because it just looked really cool. And plus the curriculum, it's different from other film schools to where most of the time colleges just in general have a 4-year degree program. This one, for the most part at least, has a 2-year degree program. But the catch with that is that you have double the work, so that way you can get your degree faster. And so they called it an accelerated learning program or accelerated degree program because it was just like a fast learning paced environment. And so they made sure that the students know that when they're looking at like applications or whatnot. And so I considered that for a little bit. And then in November of 2018, I applied there and I got conditionally accepted because I hadn't turned in all of my my ID stuff and whatnot because they couldn't fully accept me until I did that. But then I did, and I got fully accepted. And my initial plan was to go to campus and start in August of 2019. But then I looked at the tuition on top of the housing costs and whatnot. And with this school, I'd say one of the downsides of it is probably like with most colleges, they have dorms and whatnot. This one, they unfortunately did not have dorms. They have apartment complexes. And so that would add on to the tuition. So for the tuition for my degree program initially, when I was looking at it, was I believe $80,000 for the entire degree program, which in hindsight, compared to other colleges out there, it's not really that expensive, but it's still really expensive. But then on top of that, since they mentioned in the application that because there's so much like work and whatnot, you can't actually go out there and physically get a job because there's so much because they have so much stuff going on like all at once. So they mentioned that students get $1,000 aid package from financial aid every month for rent and whatnot, and then that would occur in the student loan debt. So it would have been an additional $20,000 on top of $80,000. So I'm like, I'm not sure I want to do that. And so I reconsidered it, and I looked at an online course called Digital Cinematography because I was initially going just I was going for like just a film degree and whatnot. And so I looked at digital cinematography, and I noticed that not only was a longer course because for the film degree it was I believe 2 years, however many, like 2 years straight, however many months that is, and then for the online course it was about probably 5 months to 6 months longer. And then on top of that, there were no housing costs because of course it was online. So you take away $20,000 for the student loan debt, and then on top of that, the entire degree program itself was about $25,000 cheaper. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that instead. And I pushed back my start date because I could actually push back my start date because like I said, with most film colleges or with most colleges in general, they have semesters that students can both drop out of or like begin class with and whatnot. With my school, it was a month-to-month thing. So you could literally apply in like May and then start in June. It was that fast. But for me, I pushed my start date back to November just for work reasons and when I wanted to work more, some more, save some more money. So I start college on November 25th of 2019, and it goes good for the first couple months, but then of course 2020 begins, and it's not a very good show. It's of course because it starts out easy and whatnot. Like I'm like this is a cakewalk. I can make it through this, but then it gets harder, of course, as you go through it. And so it was just a whole amalgamation of school stress and then family drama, and then I believe in April of 2020 I lost my job permanently.
Oh wow!
Because we were already hanging by a thread financially, and so COVID was the final nail in the coffin for that, and so I lost my job I believe on April 23rd, 2020. And so, but luckily because of that, I was kind of allowed. It was in a way it was stress reliever because it allowed me to focus more on my schoolwork. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the schoolwork, because of the whole family drama and COVID and whatnot, not being able to see anyone, I was having a lot of mental health issues, as I'm sure everyone was. But with school, although it was very stressful, the creativeness actually, it forced me to get my mind off of the stress and whatnot and focus on being creative. Mm-hmm. So that's, even though it was a bittersweet experience, that's what I loved about it the most, because it took my mind away from that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so for my entire degree program, it didn't really get into the film-based stuff until probably like a few months in, because a lot of it was more like a little bit of it was more like core stuff, like math, science, all that jazz, and so
all that cute stuff.
And so we didn't get into the film stuff until about 4 months in, and then they sent me a Sony FS5 camera with a tripod, which I can't remember the brand name of it, which broke, I'll go, like I didn't even break it, it just broke on its own. It's all going down in a second. And so they sent me a tripod, and then they sent me a set of 3 newer LED lights, like kind of like these ones in the studio, except without the coverings and whatnot. Yeah. He sent me that, and they sent me like a giant bounce board for like bounce lighting and whatnot. And so that was basically my at-home kind of film equipment and whatnot. And so I start that whole process, and eventually I get into my first actual physical film assignment, and it's one where they want you to shoot a short film. And so they said if you can work with other actors you can, but if you want to shoot it on your own you can, which in hindsight I do not recommend whatsoever. Do not direct and star in a film yourself. It is
100% agree.
It is so horrible. But part of the reason why I did was because I had all my friends, partly because of COVID too, I had no friends that were available. So I basically had no other choice but to do it on my own. Yeah. And on top of this, just because of the timing of the course and whatnot, I was filming this in the dead of winter, and they were, one of the requirements was you have to do a scene or a shot outside.
Oh wow.
And so I filmed the short film. It was so hard because because there's no one there to pull focus, right? The hardest thing is the focus. When you're setting up a camera and trying to set focus, it's it's a purely trial and error, because you're trying to make sure it's perfect or whatnot. And each and every single time, even if a take audibly was good, sometimes I would be just a little bit out of focus and it would ruin the entire take. So I had to do it all over again. And on top of this, at that time, and here still, I was living in a house with up to 6 people. Wow. And so I could not, and on top of that, 4 dogs. Four very loud dogs. And so I could not possibly shoot during the day. I just couldn't, because there'd be too much noise and just too much action going on. So I had basically no choice but to shoot it at night. So
have I seen this one? Is this the one you sent me?
I think you have. It was my first one.
Yeah.
And so I filmed that. So we were given like a course of a week to shoot it and whatnot. The main issue with that was, even though I was shooting at night, and I was doing a pretty good job keeping up with schedule and whatnot, but one thing I realized that, because one of the assignment requirements for this assignment in particular was that you have to show that you're doing everything manually and not on auto. Especially the white balance, and I completely forgot the white balance was on auto. Oh no! And so I was probably about 80% done filming when I realized that. And this was a few nights before I actually had to turn an edited cut into as an assignment. So I had to restart 80% of the film just a few days before the actual due date. I stayed up for like probably, I would shoot from like 11, maybe 10 to 11 p.m. and then finish probably about 6:30 in the morning for about 3 nights in a row.
Oh my god.
It was so tiring, but I got it done, and in the end, I got a 90% on the assignment.
Let's go.
Yay!
Let's go. Way to go, man.
And then college kind of breezes by because like a lot of the courses are kind of like easier stuff, like because they do know that students put in a lot of hard work to get the short films done, so they don't make you do that every single course. But I did work on a few more short films after that. The second one also kind of had the same issue where I had no friends available because, and part of the reason this was because I was initially going to work with a friend of mine. He was going to be my actor and whatnot, but due to he got a second job right when I was going to start filming, so his availability was just out the window. And so I had to scrap the location. I had to rewrite the entire thing in a matter of a day, and then reshoot the entire thing. I didn't even film it. I just had to film it again, like literally 2 nights before the assignment was due.
Wow.
In the dead of winter again. With the required at least scene or shot outside.
Seems like you're very bitter against winter.
Yeah, and on top of
Winter's
that,
not your friend.
and here's a whole process with that. So my front door has this issue of when it gets extremely cold out, it locks from the, or doesn't lock, but it freezes shut from the outside.
Oh gosh.
And so whenever I got done with the take outside, I'd have to walk around my entire house just to plug my SD card into my computer to see if the shot looked right or not. And then if not, I had to do the exact same thing over again and film it.
That's the worst.
So
that's the worst.
It just goes to show that if you're going to be a filmmaker, you have to have a lot of passion and commitment. But it's not for the
and
faint-hearted.
maybe friends.
And friends too.
Availability.
But luckily, I did.
Well, that's the thing. Like I know it's been said and we've talked about it. It's like real artists don't wait for the equipment to show up. They don't wait for the actors to show up. They work with what they have.
Yeah.
And that's a very prime example of doing that. And so like props to you.
Thank you.
That was probably so brutal.
Oh my god, it was.
I'm hoping those grades were worth it though.
Speaking of grades, I'm gonna go into that real quick.
Yeah, please. So I'm very curious. A quick question: did you get a bachelor's or
got a bachelor's degree in digital cinematography? That was the degree. It was basically an online film degree, but it was called digital cinematography.
Dude, that's sweet.
So speaking of the second short film, so the main actor that I was going to work with, I had him be a voice actor because I still wanted to keep him in it. So luckily that worked out. Yeah. So whole entire school thing goes by. I do a documentary and whatnot, which I think is my best work at the school and whatnot. Whole thing goes by, and then finally, after like 2.5 years of just nonstop stress, like 11:59 p.m. every single Sunday night, I was crunching on assignments trying to get them in. And October of this year comes along, October 28th in particular. My dad and I fly down to Florida for my college graduation. I was considering whether I wanted to, because I'm afraid of flying, and so I'm like, do I want to do this virtually or do I want to go to campus? But I'm like, you know what? I put in so much hard work. Me doing it online or virtually would be so lame. Just I mean, plus you've already put in so much effort. You've already taken so much risk. Face your fear of flying and then go down to Florida and just graduate on campus. And so that's precisely what I did. So
how was the flight?
The first flight was nerve-wracking because it's like once you're up in the air, it's like, oh no, this is like really happening. There's no going back now.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
You cannot get off the
Dude,
plane.
I'm relating so hardcore with this because I was terrified of going on a plane.
And then during the flight, we hit a little bit of turbulence, and that was terrifying too. But eventually, we got through it. Yeah. So we get down to Florida in about 2.5 hours, or 2 hours rather. We go to a hotel, and then this is about like probably 11 o'clock at night. And my graduation is at noon the next day. Mm-hmm. So I go on campus, and this is literally like a dream come true because I have been looking at this college for the past 5 years and just looking at pictures of it, and now I was finally here in person. Yeah. And it was just a surreal experience to just be a part of. And plus, the entire graduation had all these different light setups and whatnot, which other graduations don't, at least from my experience, don't even have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was just overall a really cool experience. And then to top it off, I'm not going to brag here, but I'm going to brag.
To your own horn, you got to.
Yeah. I graduated with a 4.0 GPA, and I graduated as the valedictorian of my degree program. After all
Let's go.
Round of applause.
Let's go.
Yeah.
What a man. Yeah. It's totally worth it.
So that was my college experience. So it's all over now. It's
awesome.
kind of weird that it's over now, but it was a bittersweet experience, but it was also a joyride as well, and I enjoyed doing it. So
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think it's funny that you mentioned having to film so much stuff alone, because the first thing that I was ever supposed to shoot for a class, I had it all set up. I had like the times with my friend figured out and everything. And then I got exposed to COVID, and they were like, you can either quarantine in your tiny little dorm room for 2 weeks, or you can go home. And I was like, I'm gonna go home. And my parents had a rental house that just happened to be sitting empty at that point. So.
And now, a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Coffee House 5. With locations in Franklin and Greenwood and soon a third in Bargersville, Coffee House 5 is Johnson County's premier independent coffee shop to relax, study, or meet friends around great coffee and great food Monday through Saturday. Whether it's a handcrafted espresso or a single origin pour-over, you'll enjoy the freshest, smoothest coffee possible roasted in-house at their Franklin location using a unique airbed roasting process. And don't forget to pair your coffee with a ham and cheddar scone, biscuits and gravy made with their award-winning Parmesan chive biscuit, or any of their other pastries and sandwiches prepared in their Franklin kitchen using family recipes in a style they call Midwest comfort food. As if that's not enough to get your attention, Coffee House 5 is a for-benefit coffee house. All profits are invested in building a stronger community through their support of local mental health services, which you can read more about on their website, coffeehouse5.com. So next time you're in Franklin or Greenwood, and soon Bargersville, stop by Coffee House 5.
So I got to go there, and then I was like, well, I guess I get to star in this film too.
Yay.
So, and it's really funny. My script was 3 pages long. Would you like to guess how long the final cut of this movie was?
30 seconds? I don't know.
4 minutes.
Nope.
I'll go extreme and say 10 minutes.
20.
Wow.
What?
Dang.
Jeez, man.
And I think I did get it down to like 17 or something, because it was supposed to be between like 5 and 10 minutes. And I had a 3-page script, and the general rule of thumb is that it's going to be about however many minutes your script is, right?
Dialogue heavy? Because I know how much you talk. So
no, it was. There's like no dialogue in it at all. It's because I did so many. I just watched this film in a different class called. What's it called? It has the word paradise in it somewhere, and it's from like the 60s, and it's shot in black and white, and it's a bunch of long takes. And for some reason that stuck with me. I was like, I like this vibe. I don't know why I like it. Also, I don't like video editing, which is why
there it is. There's the real reason. There it is.
Which is why I like the aspect of being able to like be on set and make something and then have someone else go edit it. And I'm like, that's great. You do you. I'm
Notice
sure it'll be
honestly,
fantastic.
me too. Yeah.
You don't like video editing?
I mean, I do like it, but I prefer if someone else did it, because it's not my
Right?
forte. It's just
Right?
like I enjoy just being on set in a physical location filming something. And although editing, I like it because you're building a narrative.
Yeah.
I just leave it to someone who's like professional and who knows exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
I would rather give it to someone who's passionate
Exactly.
about editing.
Here's a question. What software have you used for editing?
Mainly Adobe Premiere Pro.
That's what you use, yes. Yeah.
And my school was an Adobe school, so
Yeah.
that's what we used to.
I guess it just might be Final Cut that you guys need.
Well,
Because I've never touched
stuff.
Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
So
I've edited stuff on Final Cut, and I did like it, but I don't like editing as a whole. And I think it's because I used to, with one of my best friends, we used to make little like set in the 20 silent films, right? And that was basically like my one woman show. Like she played the other character and everything else was me. And
great.
so I think I like really burnt myself out on editing. Plus, no matter how much I begged or pleaded that perhaps like, some sort of nice Apple product with Final Cut would be really nice to edit on, my parents refused. And so I edited on that old home computer that had like Windows Movie Maker 10 on it. And I would edit a scene and it'd be great. And then it would crash.
oh gosh.
And then I'd have to do it again.
Yeah.
Then
And
you
again,
feel like you're
and again.
fighting your equipment to
Yes.
actually get anything made.
I
And then-
have a story that relates to that, because with my computer on Adobe Premiere Pro, my computer heats up really fast, and so each time I
Yeah.
will film something, the computer would heat up really fast, and then I would have to stop editing and then let it cool down, and then plus it would drain the battery too. So I can definitely relate to that.
I will say one very nice thing about the school that I went to is that they have an entire room of Mac computers.
Wow.
It is a beautiful space. It is amazing, and you just go in there and you kind of like pick which Mac you want to be yours for the year, and you just claim that seat and you don't let anyone else sit there.
I was thinking it would be like a Harry Potter wand choose it's a wizard type thing.
I mean, that's why on like the first day of any class that was in the Mac lab, you wanted to like get there early so that you could like pick the seat you wanted, because sometimes it was just like a which seats left thing. But also it was a very small school, so there was one class where we made our websites and it was me and one other girl. That was the class, that was it. I was like, I'm being homeschooled again, this is great.
That's great. I love it. Hayden, I would love to hear more about what you've done as far as like filmmaking, and if you want to share more, because we've gotten to hear some of the college experiences. And I know you did go to college. Remind me again what you went for.
I went for, well, out of high school, again, I had no idea what I wanted to do. It was something like artistic or illustration or something, but I wasn't super sure. And so I just started taking gen eds at Ivy Tech to get those out of the way in preparation for whatever I pursued. I eventually just kind of settled on animation, but specifically not the actual animation side, but pre-production, like drawings, paintings, etc., design for animation, because I figured it's a lot more design for an animated film than like a live action where they're just doing maybe a few, some storyboards and mock-ups depending on what kind of story it is. But so I felt it was a good marriage of story and painting and drawing and being part of the storytelling process. So I pursued that for a while. And then I kind of figured like, getting into animation would be kind of a process. And so I started doing graphic design stuff at Ivy Tech. So I eventually got like an associate's for graphic design. And that was a good experience. And I also got some nice filmmaking experience from Ivy Tech, because they had their own locker of equipment. And I took like a video class or two because I was interested in it at the time. And then they had the room full of iMacs, and that was handy. So do your graphic design work on there, and then in the video class, do your editing and all that. So that really helped me get into the programs and actually learn the programs. So yeah, it was a good experience overall. It was kind of drawn out because I didn't know what I wanted to do at first, but eventually through doing graphic design and then being able to do those video courses, that really helped things. So I could have learned it potentially on my own, but it would have been how many years longer of just trying to blunder
Trial
through.
and
Not just having all the access to all the
There's
Adobe
always
stuff.
going to be that, though.
Yeah.
There's always going to be trial and error.
I didn't edit in Lightroom until last year.
Oh, wow.
Because
Oh,
As a photographer.
As a photographer, you got to specify that. Like, our reactions are, she's a photographer.
I would get
Not
judged
only is she
so
photographer,
hard
you have
on
a
that.
business in photography.
And once I started actually like making people pay me to take their photos, I learned how to use Lightroom, and I was like, okay, actually this is kind of nice. But the computer, my first laptop that I had like in school, actually like it was not good enough to, I told my mother specifically, I was like, I would like some sort of Apple laptop because I know what I'm going to school for. And the salesperson was like, what about this one? And I was like, no. And she was like, that's great. And I was like, so like it couldn't run it. And it had like one of those little crappy editing systems in it. But what's so funny is that like the number of times that I took digital photography one semester, and I didn't like that class because I didn't feel like I learned a lot, because I kind of already like knew all of the stuff, because it was like a basic digital photography class, and I was like, I already know how to do all of this. But one of the requirements was that you were supposed to edit in Lightroom. But most of the time I didn't want to go down to the Mac lab to edit my pictures that I'd taken that day and forgot about and put off, so I would just do it on my sad little laptop, and I would get good grades. And at one point
The truth comes out.
and at one point it was when I got sent back home to be quarantined. I I was doing, like, I zoomed into the class and I was like, you know, presenting my photos for that week or whatever. And I was like, first of all, I did the wrong assignment. So I took those at like midnight and then edited them really fast. And then also I was like, yeah, and by the way, I don't have, you know, Lightroom on this computer, implying that I had been using it the entire rest of the class. And my professor was like, whoa, these are really good though. And I was like, see, I don't need Lightroom. But it was just really funny. So yeah, I can't remember what my initial jump off to that was.
That is okay.
But
We've been talking about a lot of good stuff.
It was funny. So
no, it is funny.
that was my, everyone was like, how do you edit? I was like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. It just kind of happens.
None of us really know. You're thrown into the deep end of the pool with editing.
Yeah.
Whether it's photos, one single frame, or digital media that's multiple frames per second.
Yeah.
You just gotta start, and that's how you learn, and then trial by error, and then through that.
Yeah, the worst era of my photography was when I didn't know editing was a thing. And I just told you this story the other day. 2 of my friends and I recreated a photo, and it was before I like knew how to edit stuff, but I knew how to turn the black and white setting on in my camera. But I didn't think of that when we were taking the pictures. So then I put the picture on the computer and then I took a picture of the picture on the computer with my camera in the black and white setting, and then I put that on the computer, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool, guys.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I've come a long way.
Yes. This is great. So in the scheme and sphere of editing and creating stories and creating narratives and getting more into storytelling as a whole, Hayden, you mentioned at the beginning of this that you're a YouTuber? Asterisk.
Basically, now I
would you
guess.
like
Don't
to
downplay
share?
it that
would
much.
you like to share with everyone what exactly you have produced on your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So.
Brilliance.
That's true. It's true.
Am I wrong?
I'm always hesitant to use like content creator or YouTuber because it strikes up these images of today we're going to swallow 3 gallons of Jell-O in under an hour. I'm a content creator.
Put that on the Patreon.
I'm an influencer. Just that whole image is interesting. So maybe I'll call myself. I am a YouTuber, but storyteller. You could say director, editor. I don't know.
You do all of that, so yes.
Yeah.
I do have to do.
You put videos on YouTube. That's your platform.
Talking about working by yourself, you've learned a lot from that. So
yeah, and that came out of Ivy Tech and learning those programs, and then we come back for COVID, and we can't go to the computer lab, so then I have to download. Like I have to take the jump and do the student plan on Creative Cloud, and then I have Premiere Pro, and then. So I learned that, and I learned it because honestly, if you have something you're passionate enough about, then suddenly the obstacles don't really matter anymore, So I really had nearly no idea. I did very basics on how to use Premiere Pro, but like very much cavemanish knowledge. And then I started figuring out that we had home footage, not only from like the 90s that I finally got developed, like 90s and 2000s, but then like from the 80s, 70s, and then like color footage from the 50s of my dad. It was incredible. And I was like, this is like my parents' whole life. Like that's pretty kind of rare when you can get that, like stretching back to the 50s. So I used that to make this whole, like I just had this idea in my head, this epic narrative of like our family history, because we had some awesome times and that was all on our parents, and I had to try to show that to them. This is what you guys created, like this family. This is we all love each other, and it's awesome. But I had to show them, show don't tell, because I kept on telling them, and they're like, "Oh, well, no, thank you.
That's
nice.
I
I
was
like,
no, that's not nice. I'm
just
just
the thought that counts."
So I actually it became this gargantuan project, and I searched through I had to go through over 30 hours of footage and then nest clips into this library of hundreds and hundreds of clips and assets. And it was nearing like 900 or 1,000 clips, and then it's just like, so I made like this 40-minute long movie, and through that I just had to learn everything. So I just YouTube. Okay, how do I unnest a clip? How do I nest a clip? How do I work this sound bug out? So then I actually just learned editing because of that. I wasn't necessarily trying to. It wasn't about editing. It was about, I have to make this story real. I have to bring this to life. And so that was a really special memory, sharing that video with my parents. But then eventually, like during that time, I'm always just like ingesting stories, podcasts, books, movies, all these things. And so I'm hammering my family with like at the dinner table all the time with like, the history of the Wild West. And there was a molasses flood in 1919 in Boston. And did you know Interstellar came about because like just all these things. And then I was like, some of these are actually really interesting, and I'd like to share these with people.
Just
so how do I do this? Well, I've seen those video essays, so I could make something like that. And then, so I just started writing down ideas, and then slowly the number of ideas grew, and I was like, okay, I have to make something. And then eventually last year I finally put something together, and it wasn't even like a great idea. I was like, is there enough here to do something? This idea, it's all right. Okay, I'll just make it, put something out there, get the channel off the ground.
Casually.
So, man, the amount of time it took though, just editing, just gazillions of clips. And that's the thing with video essays, because you're making an argument and you're proving that argument, which means you have to draw from all these different movies, which means you have to download footage, and then you have to cut out the scenes, and then make it flow. And then I didn't have the music I wanted, so I had to like make my own music. And so that was all fun, but also really stressful. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to throw this out there. And I didn't even have the export settings right. I'm still learning editing. So it exported to like 720p instead of 1080. But I mean, I figured it out though. I know. Now I know how to.
Oh boy.
But I was like, you know what? I've just. I know that hurts. I'm sorry.
He's dying.
Fortunately, most people are watching it on their phones, so it doesn't matter too much.
Not for real. I know most normal people do not care what you just said, and my reaction makes no sense to them. But for us who understand, you guys know my pain.
I tried to figure it out, and then I couldn't. So I was like, it does. This video is not probably going to do a ton anyway. I just need to get something out there. So I did, and I was like, my hopes are not super high, but the first week it got like 90 views, and I was like, okay. I mean, I was wanting a little more than that. And
then the first video on a YouTube channel, 90 views in the first.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
I used to jilt people. I'd go on Facebook and I go, I hold my breath until we get to 100 views, so you better go watch my video.
Okay, continue. It's kind of like that lady who was like, if I don't get invited to the royal wedding, then I'm just going to sit out in front of Buckingham Palace and not eat. And they're like, okay, starve. She's like,
unalive yourself until you're successful.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, the first week was like 90 views. And then the second week, it started getting into the hundreds, and it was like, oh, sweet, awesome. And then like, it was in the thousands on like Thursday, and then it was like 5,000. Then I call my sister and have a conversation. At the end of the conversation, it's at like 6,000. I'm like, can you say content creator? I mean, sheesh. I mean, let's go. And then it just kept on going. And then Friday, it's in like 20 and 30,000. And then Friday night, it's 60,000, 70, and then Saturday morning it's like 80, and then Saturday night it's 170,000, and then Sunday night it's 400,000, and then I'm like, what is happening? And then by like Tuesday or Wednesday at midnight, it hit 1 million, and I was like, jeez. Well,
there you go.
Yeah, that was very surprising.
Do you know what your current count is?
2.6 million. So yeah, I just kept on going.
Yeah.
Just
I
look
just
it
look it
up.
up.
Okay.
I was like, what's it at now?
It was about, as for the listeners, it was about like the Mandalorian, and I love armor, I love helmets. It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, every movie I've ever seen, they put a helmet on a guy in like a battle scene, and then like 13 seconds later, the helmet pops off for some reason. And I'm like, well, okay, that's probably because they just want to see the character's face, and we need to see that emotion, right?
Yeah.
And then I see the Mandalorian, they're like, it stays on basically the whole time. And I was thinking, that's pretty interesting. Why did that work? Like, that's very different. And I was still invested in the character.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if there was enough there to explore, but I thought, okay, it's interesting enough to do a video on. And even now, like, it's not an amazing video, and I feel like some parts of my arguments are a bit weak, but I think the overall premise that Hollywood just takes helmets off constantly and doesn't allow the actor to, to really act is, I think that holds. I think some of the smaller arguments, maybe not as much, but in general, yeah. So then I just kept on trying to, like, a YouTuber had told me, like, you should have a runway of content. And I was like, will do. And then eventually I was like, this is so hard. I'm just going to release one and whatever. And then I was like, I wish I had a runway of content. So that was funny. So I have one other video out besides that. And now I'm just trying to really, like, I was writing today and working on as much as I can.
And painting bullet holes.
Yes, because I've done graphic design, so those thumbnails, that's your opportunity to make a piece of art, right? And so I was doing a thumbnail for an upcoming video where there was this driver and this action sequences, and so I had a car on the thumbnail, but I was like, well, the car needs to have bullet holes. And so I started painting bullet holes, and I had to study what makes a bullet hole look realistic on cars, and then to make sure that they looked realistic, and then like how the light captures around the rim of the bent metal, and
All right.
Just casually.
Just casually going into
Do
the
it for
details of a bullet
excellence.
hole on a thumbnail.
it's worth it.
No one's
Excellence
gonna
over
see it,
everything.
but now you will know.
Yeah, like that's one thing. Like, even when we know probably 90% of the people that see this are gonna overlook it, that doesn't mean you have to give up on being excellent in what we're creating.
Yeah.
The details that we see, not everyone's gonna see. It's true, but there'll be that one person out of the 99 who actually notices and pays attention to the small little minute details, to the Easter eggs, to the focus, to the pans, to the art, to the color grade, everything that we know that we can mess up on. And when we go and put our due diligence in and drive and focus on those things so that those 1% people can see that and appreciate it, it makes it all the more worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think it's cumulative too. Like, all of those little things that other people overlook because it's not a big deal and they just kind of halfway everything. When you do so many of those little things correctly, they're bound to notice something, but also it's all cumulative to when they watch it, when they see that product, all of those little things come together, and that's what knocks them off their feet. And they're like, whoa, this is way better than I expected. This is way different than the other content that I usually experience. I feel like it all just kind of comes together in the end. But
Yeah.
My biggest issue is that in terms of my whole filmmaking process is that I tend to be a perfectionist.
Oh my gosh.
And
yes.
so like I tend to whenever I'm thinking about making like whether like an audio or a video cut perfect, I think about, is the audience really going to notice this? And it's like, is the amount of effort that I'm putting into this really worth it? And sometimes I go back and forth on it because there are times where I was in college editing either like a video that I made or a short film, and it's just like I'm adding all this extra stuff purely for my professors, but it's not like most of the audience members will actually notice nor care about it. And the same thing for a couple of projects that I'm working on now. It's like I want to be as good as I want to make the audio and video cuts as good as I can make them, but at the same time it's like not everyone's a film major or film professional, so they're not really going to notice or care about that. So it's kind of a back and forth between with me. So
And I think there is definitely some instances in specific things where less is more, where you don't have to put this much focus, because there are times that I'm just focused on one specific moment in my video, but then because I drew all my attention on that, it's now over edited and it's a little too choppy in places, or just this doesn't fit right in the whole grand narrative, because everything else is like edited well, but this is like, whoa, and it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it doesn't fit the rest of the tone. So having it, making sure to carry the tone, carry the right pacing and all that stuff, that's what really I find difficult to do when editing, because I get caught up and I see, like, when I'm editing a wedding video here, I'm just like, this is so cool. This shot specifically is a great shot of like a horse in the fog in the background, and I'm like, I just want this to. Can this just be the whole movie? Like,
just this.
Just this.
You mean like a
just
picture?
This. Just no, because it has to be moving. There's so much emotion that comes from movement, and like, because like I've really enjoyed just stuff that flows well. I love writing poetry. I love listening to music. I love it when everyone's dancing on the dance floor at parties. I love seeing life, and seeing life means there's movement involved. Photos are amazing for capturing memories and capturing moments, and they can definitely convey emotion, but they don't convey life as well as a movie can, because movement is lacking in photos.
In some ways.
Well,
that's actually very interesting, because a newer trend now is actually like slowing the shutter speed down in photos to convey movement more. And it's a whole new trend that's going on. And I'm like, I'm very intrigued
and it's
by
very
this.
Intriguing. Yes. And I've seen those, and those definitely, I would say, yes, that conveys a lot more movement and a lot more emotion into, like, say it's like a girl like twirling a dress.
Yes.
It's like, okay, this is capturing not just one moment, but multiple moments. And that's very cool. But overall, that's why I think I find myself personally attracted more to movies than photography and film. Like, attracted more to film than photography, because I really enjoy when things flow and things are moving. So even if it's just a still shot of like wind blowing through like a graded fence or something like that. Yeah, I just like it. Yeah. So we have a little bit more time. If you guys don't have any questions, I have an end closing question. Sure. But if there's stuff that you guys want to talk about, I'd much rather talk about that stuff.
Okay, cool.
What?
So I guess I'll just
share, Spencer. Talk.
So I want to share a little bit more insight into like how my whole film interest started.
Yes, please.
So
I love that.
Like I mentioned the whole Nintendo DS thing, so that was more of like a hobby, not really an interest. But I would say similar to Kat's story of when I was about probably 14 or 15 years old, I would do this thing where I would watch behind the scenes of movies constantly, and I just thought it was so intriguing how they're going to all these different locations and building these different sets and just filming stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think I really don't know how I specifically got into filmmaking. I just did, and it's so weird for me in that regard, because it's not like other things where like you have like a main focus of like what got you into something, but with this it's like I just kind of did, and so it seems kind of unnatural to me. And so with that whole thing, I developed an interest in creating shots. And so what I did was that in my sophomore year, I was allowed to take a Core 40 class at Columbus East. Was it Core 40? Or something related to that. It was like a special, unique class that's not like assigned to you like a core thing. So I went to one of my teachers who was assigning this stuff, and I said, "Hey, I'm kind of developing an interest in like video stuff. Are there any like filmmaking related classes at Columbus East High School?" And we looked, and there wasn't a filmmaking related class, but the closest one I could find was a class called Radio and Television. So I'm like, okay, sign me up. And so that's what I did. And so what I would do is that I learned, because like TV and film are obviously like related in a lot of ways, and so I learned a lot of kind of film-esque related stuff in that class, even though it wasn't directly film related. And what I would do is that my teacher would let me take a camera and tripod home overnight and just film stuff. And I would film a bunch of cool different shots or whatnot and just make like stupid short films out of them. And the films are lost. I have no clue where they are at this point. No narrative, just a lot of cool shots. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, hey, I kind of want to. I'm thinking I want to be a cinematographer or something related to that. But then, I went into making short films at school. And again, these short films were just awful. I
didn't think any of our early on works was good.
Underexposed visuals and peaking audio. Because I remember this one time where I was showing my teacher one of my short films, and I was using music and I did not edit it properly. And there was one spot where it just blew the entire soundboard out because it was just so loud.
It was a creative decision.
I stand by it.
And he didn't say a word for it. He just watched it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. And so I did that while in high school. And so I'm like, and this is like was right around when I started looking at film colleges to go to and whatnot. And so I gradually like went back and forth of like cinematography or acting, or because I liked a little bit of acting too. I liked doing that stuff, but I'm like, that's not really like a main career goal for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if this is the exact memory because it was like.
And now a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Passion for Acting Theater Company. Passion for Acting Theater Company has a passion for bringing excellent and entertaining live theater to audiences in Bartholomew County. Passion for Acting Theater Company, created in 2018, performs dinner theater productions at the terrific and eclectic Willow Leaves of Hope on the Square in Hope, Indiana. Their first production, The Miracle Worker, was a huge success and received great reviews from audience members. Since then, Passion for Acting Theater Company has performed 10 shows, ranging from comedies like The Kitchen Witches and The Odd Couple, to drama and suspense like their original murder mystery, Angel Street, to classic children's literature like The Secret Garden and Anne of Green Gables. Their next show will be Kalamazoo, a comedy about what happens when older folks try to get into the online dating scene. Kalamazoo will be performed at Willow Leaves of Hope in February, just in time for a Valentine's Day or to laugh the winter blues away. Enjoy a delicious dinner and a great night of entertainment at Willow Leaves of Hope. Phone number is 812-341-7251. Call now to make reservations for this laugh-out-loud comedy.
Exact memory, because it was like 6-7 years ago at this point, but I remember looking up the definition of what a cinematographer and director was, and when I saw the definition, I'm like, I want to be a director.
Yeah.
Screw cinematography, I want to be a director. Like directing is it just like you have
throw cinematography out the window.
Yeah, and so the part of the reason why I chose to want to be a director was because straight up I just liked having that creative control. I just liked being able to direct things and just make things kind of my way. Yeah. And part of what goes into that is because like growing up, I didn't really feel like I had a lot of control over my life, and so that's probably part of the reason why I chose directing. And so this kind of passion just developed over time to where I would just make short films in high school, and then it just kind of went from there. And then the rest is basically history. Yeah. And on top of this, I forgot to mention this. So in my senior year of high school, I had 3 different teachers in my radio and TV class for 3 different years. I'm not going to mention his name or whatnot, but this is kind of a funny story. So this was this guy's first year teaching, right? Like he had just come out of working at like a TV station somewhere. Okay. First year teaching ever, and I was literally the first person he ever met in that class.
Wow.
Ever. And so I recall him sending a bunch of me and a bunch of other classmates up to it wasn't a gym, but it was like kind of a workout area at East High School, and he wanted us to just film B-roll or film different shots of people working out or whatnot. And so what I would do is, of course, I was the movie guy. I wasn't the TV guy. I was the movie guy. And so what I would do is I would film shots, but I would make them super cinematic by adding a lot of dolly movement and whatnot, and just filming from a lot of cinematic angles. And I recall my teacher saying, "Okay, no." He said he wanted it to be, because in TV, at least from what I've seen, a lot of TV B-roll shots tend to be static, just pan shots from either left or right or up and down and whatnot. He wanted it to be like that. He did not want it to be all cinematic and whatnot. I'm like, okay, fine, I guess. And so. Although I still kind of tried doing that here and there, and it was kind of fun to just kind of experiment with that, and it was just cool to like just get some sort of, I would call it pre-knowledge before college, because
Yeah.
a lot of the classmates I had,
I know, I was obsessed by it. I was like, yes, pre-knowledge before college.
yeah,
Put it on a t-shirt.
yeah, and so
Sell it.
exactly, make some money off of it. So anyway, so before I went to college, I kind of felt bad for a few other classmates of mine in college, because I could tell that a lot of them had just started learning about filmmaking related stuff in college, and so
yeah.
of course I was kind of above them in terms of knowledge and skill, because I already had gone to high school and learned about the stuff for 3 years straight, and so I already had some pre-knowledge before college, and so that kind of helped me out a little bit, and then I just recall a few times where, like, I recall this one point I think it was my second year of radio and TV, where I was filming, I think it was one of the police academy classes or whatnot. I was filming them just doing like a training course, and I recall my teacher saying, "Hey, Spencer, you have really good framing here." I'm like, "Okay, all right, thank you." I wasn't intending that, but I'm like, "Okay, cool, awesome." And so that kind of helped the whole aspect of, like, especially when you're going into film, something that helps you in terms of your confidence in yourself is it's just peer feedback, and that's one of the entire aspects of movies and filmmaking in general, is feedback and reception, because that'll dictate how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
And so in college, whenever I would make something, and I recall this was a course in my university called Composition and Visual Design. This was the course where we really started using our film equipment and whatnot. And what our instructor would have us do is just take various pictures and using certain framing and whatnot. And so I recall him saying, and this is still with me to this day, because this guy had 40 years of experience in the field. He was like a camera operator. He was a DP or director of photography. He was all that stuff. He was a pro essentially. He knew all of it. And I recall him saying, "Hey Spencer, you're like, I'm really impressed by, like, the fact that you just picked up his camera like a week ago and you're already doing a good job." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And at the end of the course, he sent me a message saying, "Oh, by the way, Spencer, you're I think there were 75 people in the class for at least that month, and he said, you're one of 2 people who got 100% in this class.
Wow.
Only one of 2." I'm just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be that good."
Yeah,
but
like,
I was.
It's so fun when you exceed your own expectations of yourself.
I know, right?
And I think not a lot of people realize their potential when it comes to what they're passionate about, what they're gifted in.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people, like, for instance, your example earlier of your YouTube video just being blown up, like, and you, even now, you're criticizing the work that, like, millions of people have now seen and love.
Yeah.
And, like, you, like, getting the compliment from somebody who's so experienced, and, like, getting that compliment and seeing, like, from just 100%, like, that you're able to do something that's actually, like, remarkable.
Yeah.
And, like, exceeding your own vision for yourself is really exciting. It heightens your dreams beyond the stars.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. And I love that stuff.
In contrast, I want to bring up something that's also like a college experience of mine too. I mean, I guess it's not directly in college, but it's something that happened during college. So this is going to go into my whole thing with Triflix. So
Perfect.
Plug.
Yeah, perfect segue.
You're welcome, Cole.
This is for you.
So my history with Triflix goes back probably to 2015, like right when I got my whole interest in film started. So Tristan actually went to the same high school I did. He went to East.
Yeah.
And I recall, I think he was one of like 2 videography companies to come in and interview one of my teachers. And my teacher knew that I was developing an interest in film. And so he said, "Hey, one of my students is developing an interest in film. Can I have like a business card or something like that?" And Tristan was one of the people who left his business cards. And I recall it was like back when he had just started. And so it was like, compared to now, it was it was very amateur.
Not good logo.
I mean, it looked good, but it was just like, compared to now, it was very just like low
In
budget
development.
look. In development, yeah. And so fast forward about 5 years after this, we have an assignment at my school where, because I was in an online course, we had to do this thing where our school was requiring us to reach out to a local film company to get a submission assignment in for about 24 total hours, not consecutively over like a day, but like just over a period of time. And so I remember thinking like, hey, why don't I reach out to Tristan, because I've heard of him, but I haven't worked with him before. Like, why don't I do this? Why don't I work with him for my film project or whatnot? And so I did precisely that. I reached out to him on December 28th of 2020. Or no, maybe it was... Maybe
this guy got his dates.
I'm like, we're being
you
so
are like
oddly
calendar
specific
man
over
when
here.
it comes to dates.
I still have his email too. So I think it might have been like December 26th, but either way, it was around that time. And I recall getting a reply from Tristan saying, "Hey Spencer, thanks for reaching out to us. We'd love to have you in on set, make room for you, like to have you intern or whatnot." And I was giving him the specifics of this whole hourly submission assignment and whatnot. And so he accepted me.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
I recall my first ever meeting with Tristan and Cole was it was online. It was on, I think, January 7th of 21.
He's trying so
See,
hard with that one.
I date stuff by what color my hair was and how short it was. I was like, okay, I know I cut my hair off in April after my graduation, so I still had a little bit of the red tips, and then so it was like a week after that. That's how I date stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very precise with it. So so yeah, January 7th comes along, and I'm a nervous wreck because it's my first time talking to both of them just at all. I've never met Cole before, and I've already been affiliated with Tristan sort of, and so I talked with them, and they're just wanting to get to know me and whatnot, and the entire thing lasts about an hour, and we just talk about different stuff like what I'm doing in school and whatnot, and why I reached out to them and whatnot. So that whole thing gets set up, and we schedule an actual meeting date to talk about what I can do for them as an internship and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we met up on January 18th at Graham's Bakery here in town. And I recall the date well because I was nervous. And so we met up at Graham's Bakery, and I was just so nervous. And so we went there and we talked about just different film stuff and whatnot. We talked about different projects that I could be a part of and whatnot. And then the first one the first project I worked with them on was something for a church here in town. It was on January 20th, just a couple days later, and it was a really fun experience. Like I said, I was nervous because all these Tristan and Cole were working with this equipment that I had no experience with whatsoever, and so I was just nervous. And I pretty much filmed behind the scenes B-roll stuff, and so it was kind of cool in that regard. But I eventually, over the course of my internship here at Triflix, I learned a lot of cool stuff, and then the 48-hour film festival comes along, which this is my first ever quote unquote professional. It is professional. It's like a professional film thing. So it's my first professional film project ever. And so they invited me on as like a grip or a second AC or whatnot. And so I did that, and through that I met this director named Abhishek Satham. Shout out to him.
So cool.
And so he was
Cat just fangirling over here.
he was the first AC, and so I met him. It was a pretty cool experience working on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I felt on top of the world when I was doing this because this is my first film project ever. I'm still in college, and on top of that, this movie's going to premiere at an IMAX theater up in Indianapolis. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyone would kill for this experience. And so it was super fun in that regard. And I felt on top of the world. And in hindsight, it was kind of small to what I've experienced up to this point. But I met him. And then, like a month or so later, he invites me on to be a second AC for a short film that he works on filming in October of that year. Yeah, a movie called Permission.
Yes.
And so this one was the real deal because this one had a lot bigger crew, and on top of that, the crew had a lot of experience. And so I was working under the director of photography and first AC. I'm not going to mention their name just for privacy reasons and whatnot. Yeah. And then again, for with this film, I was an absolute nervous wreck. I was looking up how to stack C-stands properly. I was looking up how to coil cables. I was looking up everything because I wanted to be as prepared as I possibly could, knowing that this was a smaller film. They would ask you to do more stuff than just be a second AC and whatnot.
Yeah, they're particular about their cables.
Yeah, and so they are very particular. And so I researched all that stuff, and I was still nervous wreck going into it. And I remember meeting the DP in the first AC, and so I found out that the first AC it had probably about 10 plus years of experience. And so when he asked me, he's like, "Hey, how many short films have you worked on so far?" I said, "Yeah, this is my second one." He kind of gave me that okay, not like that, which told me he was kind of disappointed in the fact that this was only my second film that I've worked on, and so he was gonna have to be doing some on the job training or whatnot with me. But luckily he was super patient with it, and he helped me out a lot. And so I learned a lot on that set. And so it was just like I would call that whole thing a bittersweet experience, because like I said, I was working with people who had 10 plus years of experience compared to me, who had just worked on their first short film like a mere 2 months earlier or whatnot. And plus, I figured that like the DP and the first assistant probably wouldn't take well to having to do on the job training, but it's comes with the territory, because you have to get your foot in the door somehow.
Yeah.
But luckily they were patient with me, and they figured that I probably didn't have much of experience, and so they were accepting of me, luckily. And so it was a bittersweet experience in that regard, because I didn't know what I was doing half the time, so I was awkwardly having to learn and just make an absolute fool out of myself. But I learned a lot, and so I feel a lot more prepared for my next film gig whenever it comes up. So, and it's
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great.
it's a lot of
Dude,
stuff.
I
And,
love it.
and the biggest thing about it is just that like I did all this while in college. It was not out of
Yeah.
college. It was while I was still in college,
And
which
that's
a lot of
lot.
people just don't experience that.
Mhm.
So I'm glad to have experienced and gotten that experience while in college.
And that's just
Yeah.
great.
So
That's just great.
So, would you recommend going to college for film, or would you recommend just trying to like learn what you can in situations like that? Because I'm curious.
I would say if you're like super passionate about it, I would say go ahead and just, do it yourself. If you're that committed to it, then I would say so. But
Yeah.
hey, but if you feel like you can't learn everything online or learn everything via Google or whatnot, I would recommend going to film school. So that way, because for example, if you get a job out of college that requires you or needs you to be like a grip or an AC or a production assistant, you can't really learn that stuff by just looking. You can learn it by looking it up online, but you don't get the actual physical
Experience.
thing
Yeah.
unless you go to an actual college. And this is coming from me, who went to an online college. But I'm just saying for as a matter of fact that if you're really wanting to learn like the actual entry level jobs like grip and first AC and production assistant, all that stuff, going to like an actual physical college will help you be a lot more prepared for that. Because for me, I had to learn all that stuff the hard way by making a fool out of myself on this set, by working with people who had a ton of experience compared to me. And I figured that if I had gone to film school in person, I would have had all that experience beforehand. But either way, I would say it's an either or for me. If you're wanting to learn it online, you can. But if you're wanting to do something physical, then do it physical too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just curious because like I never even got to use a clapper in school. I got to hold one once, and then I told him that I was gonna like make a faux documentary for my final project, and he was like, most documentary filmmakers just like clap their fingers, so you don't need this. I was like, my clapper.
But I want to isolate.
Come back to me. I want to clap.
Especially when watching all those behind the scenes growing up, like you just see those
I
all the
was like,
time.
I
They
just
look
want-
so fun.
I just want to use the
Oh my
clapper.
gosh.
So I was sad. So it's
And like I saw you just like
Yeah,
throughout the
you're on
BTSs
it.
of the short films, just
Yep.
and I'm like, Spencer looks like he's having a grand time.
I
Let's go.
kind of am. It's like it's not a. It's with the 40-hour film thing. Like I'm not really like because I think the second AC job entails a lot more stuff than just clapping a slate
Yeah.
board, because you have to put
Oh,
down
yeah.
Yeah.
you have to put on tape markers. For some films,
There's
that's
a lot of responsibility
You have to,
that
like,
people
put-
just
Yeah.
don't see.
you have to put on like camera reports and whatnot. At least from what I've read, it's not that's not the same
Yeah,
thing
the-
for every film set. But
yeah.
Yeah.
it's a lot more than just clapping a slate board. But that's
Oh,
part of the reason why I enjoy it, because like even though my job compared to like a director or a DP or a producer, although my job is small, it's still vital, because otherwise they won't have. They'll have a harder time syncing up the audio and the video.
Yeah.
And to your point, Kat, your professor technically isn't wrong.
No,
because
he's
it's,
not.
Because it's like, because why use it? Sure, the clapboard's there for telling the editor what the take is and whatnot, or what
Yeah.
clip it is. But overall, it's like you can just do the same thing by snapping your fingers and boom, it's synced.
Yeah.
So I understand the professor's point there, but at the same time, you kind of need a slate just for like visual cues and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Information,
It was
visual
like,
cues.
'cause-
And,
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make a faux documentary, and it wound up kind of being like a real documentary that wound up again being about me, which I did not intend. Like it was supposed to be like about, the dark room, but
Yeah.
like the Office style, but about the dark room, and it was going to be great. And I showed him like the first like section of it, and he was like, take out that and that and that. I was like, all of the funny stuff? He was like, yeah, just stick with the narrative of you getting ready to do your senior show. And I was like, but then it's just me again. I don't want it to be just me. But it was really funny because at the end there, I have like a whole like little monologue that's like my like love letter to the darkroom as I'm like leaving college basically. But it's really funny because I put the sentence was something like, you know, even if people feel like these art classes are important, and then I cut to a clip that was the president of the college. They are.
Oh no.
And I showed it to one of my friends, and they were like, Kenny, that's the name of my professor. We love Kenny. He was like, Kenny's gonna make you take that out. I was like, no, Kenny's gonna love it. And Kenny didn't let me, he didn't make me take it out. And
Nice.
and we had
Yeah,
our
way to go,
little
Kenny.
we had our little premiere in the auditorium, and that clip was in there, and
Awesome.
I was like,
That's great. I love it.
subtle anyway.
All right.
But
Making waves. Using your art for a purpose, for a cause.
yes.
Yes.
I was like, I'm not leaving without this in there.
Yes. It's great. It's great. All right. Before we end, I
Mhm.
want to do something that's just a quick question, kind of like a segment type thing. Basically, just a quick take.
Mm-hmm.
What was the last movie you watched, and was it good to your standard? Hayden, do you want to start?
Let's see.
These are going to be
What was
quick.
I'm
is
trying
not
to
quick.
remember.
If you can remember, whoever remembers, go first.
The last movies that I saw in theater were See How They Run and Don't Worry, Darling. And
Were they good to your standard?
and You Should Worry, Darling. That was a film that I saw the trailer, and I saw, you know, the costuming, the hair, the makeup, the set design, and I was like, this is accurate to my, you know, limited historical like dress research knowledge. I was like, this is going to be very interesting. And then my brother and I went and we watched it, and the movie ended, and we were like, I don't even think that the movie knew what it was doing at the end. So I would watch that so you can talk about what the heck happened. And then See How They Run
Mhm.
was very interesting. They played a lot around. See, I like watching editing. I mean, like, that was amazing. I liked that. I just don't want to have to do it. But they did a lot of things where instead of like two people are talking, right? Instead of cutting back and forth between those two people, they just had both shots where you could see both of their faces playing on the screen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very interesting. And so I really liked that about that. Plus, you know, like it was just a good, you know, little detective story overall. But
Yeah.
that part of the editing was very interesting to me. And they did it several times. And they also were very like self-reflexive and like made fun of, you know, watching a film, like
Nice.
being a film.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. So
Cool. Hayden, do you have your quick take?
The
Gotta be
last one
quick
I
with the cat.
watched. This is not just theater, right? This is not just theater, like just any
No,
movie.
just
In
any
the
movie.
I just saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. I hadn't seen
Nice.
it ever. And I'd always just been told it was fine, and I can agree. It was fine. Yeah. It wasn't bad or anything. But
Nice.
I was like, I keep on hearing about Quantumania and
Yeah.
the trailer, and people are like, "Oh my goodness, it's the new big villain." So I was like, "Well, I should probably watch the second one
Yeah.
before I watch the third one."
That's
So,
fair. That's
yeah,
fair.
It was fine.
Spencer.
Okay, so
quick
this
take.
one's going to be about a film that, I mean, even though it's not the most recent movie that I've seen, it's the last movie that I got to see in full that I hadn't seen in full up until that point.
Oh.
So I met up with a few friends. It was Halloween. So I said, hey, why don't I've never seen The Exorcist in full. Why don't I watch The Exorcist in
Oh
full?
wow.
And so we did that, and I had already seen like a few of like the most iconic clips online or whatnot. So I said, hey, I mean, it's called the scariest film of all time. Why don't we watch the whole movie?
Oh wow.
This is going to sound like, this is going to be so unpopular to say. This is going to be like blasphemous, but most of the movie is just boring. Honestly, like seriously, most of it.
Quick take. Let's go.
Seriously, it's like a lot of it just like a lot of it's focused on this priest character that's most often a side character, and it's like his story, even though I guess it's important, it's just like compared to like the girl who's possessed by the demon.
Yeah.
It's like that whole build up to his story just serves no purpose when she's the one being like attacked.
Yeah.
You know, and so I thought the fact that they're focusing on this priest dude, it's boring.
Yeah.
And this may be like a biased opinion because I've already seen the most iconic clips and that it's kind of already old to me, but at the same time it's like still it's those parts are just it was kind of boring to me.
Yeah.
So I know
Hot
that's
take.
blasphemous to say, but still that's just how I felt about
I
it.
don't
So
know.
Okay.
It's your own take. Own it. That's what this is about. I recently watched a newer movie released on Netflix called The Pale Blue Eye. It's an Edgar Allan Poe based off murder mystery starring Christian Bale, and it's very interesting. And I'm not a huge dark tone person. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But I do respect it, like especially when Tim Burton does it. This isn't Tim Burton, but it's a very Tim Burton-esque tone. And so I actually really enjoyed it. Some parts of it towards the end, I think they were just, it was kind of lazy writing. But the twist at the end also really got me. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm all in. So I would say it was good.
yeah,
It was good.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for enjoying. And thank you all for being here. It's great to have you
On
guys.
not the day we originally planned.
Not the day we originally planned, and I appreciate you guys' flexibility with that. So, if you want to see some creative stuff, definitely follow Hayden's YouTube channel. Do you want to drop that name?
Sure.
We can tag you.
It's Mythwest, kind of an odd name. It's like the Midwest, but mythical. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
It'll
to put
be
on
in the
words.
description too.
We'll tag it. Yeah.
If you see the blue logo with the white M, that's
And
what it
definitely
is.
be on the lookout for the name Spencer Walsh in the future. You will definitely see that name for sure in
Yeah.
the future. I'm hoping that college was worth that.
Let's hope so.
We'll see you in like 5 years or so, probably.
5 years,
I'll be like, so what college
We'll come
worth it?
back.
Would you
We'll all come
recommend?
back and we'll just talk again.
There you go.
Sounds good. Awesome. Definitely like, subscribe, follow us on
I don't give a
Triflix.
fuck. Wow.
What? I'm sorry, Kat. You're my.
I know, I'm kidding.
Go buy pictures from Kat. Okay, just go.
Great. Everyone's things will be in the description. You should check them out because sometimes we make really cool
Sometimes they're
stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're fun. So definitely like, subscribe, follow. Triflix Cast, Triflix Film, Triflix Team. It's a lot of fun stuff, guys. Thank you all for watching. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
And cut.
Bye.